Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Michelle here from happyhealthyher.com. And this week's compassionate chat is the fourth in a series where I address common pieces of societal advice that are unhealthy and actually lead us into abuse and manipulation. Previously, we talked about compromise, then the notion of people being replaceable. Then we covered the idea that everyone is doing their best, and I will, of course, link to those chats below. But today's topic, we are talking about a piece of advice that has made me feel ashamed, invalidated, and confused. And that advice is that people can't make you feel anything. This famously came from the Eleanor Roosevelt quote, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." The irony of this statement is that it is meant to be empowering. It is meant to make us think that we are always in control of our emotions and our feelings. And there are many ways we've heard this piece of advice, which I do believe is well-meaning most of the time. So you've probably heard, only you get to decide how you feel. Or your reactions are totally up to you, or what other people say does not matter. So, of course, there's a smidgen of truth in every one of those statements. However, they miss some very basic points of human psychology and even physiology, meaning how our bodies react. As I talked about in the thumbnail of this video, feelings are not in your control. And we've talked about this before in the Power of Anger video. Our reactions are often hardwired to our nervous system. So if someone says something to you that makes you feel unsafe, scared, angry, sad, the information can often bypass your logical mind to immediately impact your nervous system. And this is a protective mechanism. It's meant to keep us safe. So the same is true if someone's behaviors or actions are a little shady or uncomfortable. Your intuition will sense that and you will ultimately feel it. That is a natural protective instinct, and to disregard it is incredibly harmful. It will lead you to second guess yourself, which often leads you into manipulation or abuse. So those who have studied manipulators like narcissists and sociopaths say very clearly that disordered people are intentionally harming others. They are intentionally making people feel uncomfortable, scared, or insecure so that they can take advantage of us. If that's not enough proof that we are not always in full control of our feelings, let's talk about marketing. If you're even watching this video, there was something about the thumbnail or the title that intrigued you. We are affected by marketing messages all day long. Advertisements, social media, TV, newspapers, any media. Most of us get messages that make us feel like we have to change something about ourselves, that we don't feel good or that we're not lovable because we don't meet a particular standard. And society actually has us programmed to think that way, that we always need to spend more money and change ourselves in order to be lovable. And that's absolutely not true. If you for 1 second, though, think that you are completely in control of your thoughts and actions, you are far more prone to get manipulated by those kinds of things. So it isn't always negative either. I've worked in the wellness space for over 25 years, and I use tactics to play on people's emotions and feelings all the time so that they will make healthier choices. I genuinely want people to be their happiest, healthiest selves. And in order to do that, I have to sort of sell that idea. I have to evoke people's feelings and emotions. It's actually naturally built in to most of the way that most of us communicate. So if you are an empath or a highly sensitive person watching this, then this notion of people not impacting how you feel is even more ridiculous, because the nature of being an empath or a highly sensitive person is that we are literal sponges for emotions and feelings. It's an energy thing, and it's most definitely not in our control. This is the biggest challenge for people with energetic sensitivities, is that we will feel emotions and energies that have nothing to do with us. So in my personal experience, I always kind of dismissed some of my empath traits. I always thought, okay, maybe I'm making them up. And a lot of people will say their empaths are not a thing. So I had that programming too, making me believe, okay, my feelings are just my own and I need to just own that. But during the pandemic, I had a completely new awareness. So when we first went into lockdown, in some ways that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because at the time I was in a job in a shared office doing writing and communications where I was constantly being interrupted, and it was so hard to do my work. And so all of a sudden I'm relegated to the quiet of my home office, and it felt like so much peace and a lot more ease in what I was having to do on the day-to-day. But slowly but surely, within that first week or two, I started to feel absolutely terrible. I was depressed. I felt like I had this heavy energy. I was on the verge of tears all the time. And sure, I was probably a little bit afraid for my friends and my family. But in general, a lot of what I was experiencing, I was very, very aware of the fact that it had nothing to do with me and my personal circumstances. And at that time, I was lucky enough to stumble upon a webinar from someone who called himself an empath coach. And this was a very highly sensitive woman. And she gave a webinar where she was sharing how challenging the emotions were and her feelings were ever since the pandemic. And as she shared what she was experiencing, it was so resonant to me. And she took us through a meditation, and all of a sudden, all that angst, all the heavy energy sort of washed away. And so it gave me a lot of clarity around the fact that I'm really not in control of a lot of my feelings and my emotions. A lot of times I'm being bombarded by things that are not mine. And I think it's important for people to realize that that can be their situation too. That could be happening to you as well, because it's very common. Now, the bottom line here is that while there are practices we can put in place to protect ourselves from other people's energies or even their insults or manipulation, there are things and efforts we can do to protect ourselves. It is wrong to assume that we have full control over that. It is much better to surrender to the fact that oftentimes we are going to have things wash over us, or we're going to have knee-jerk reactions to things that are going on around us. And so it's much better to be able to have that awareness than to shame yourself into thinking that you should have more control and that people shouldn't be able to do this. So of course, I don't want this to leave you feeling disempowered, because you do have a lot of control once you are in full awareness of what is happening around you. When we feel a challenging emotion arise, it is best to just ride it like a wave so that we can let it go. It is also helpful to question feelings with statements like, is this energy or feeling mine? So if you are an empathetic person or you are a sensitive person, you may be picking up on the collective or even on a close friend's feelings or energy. And so you always want to question, is this even your own? And then the second piece would be, is this true? So if you are around someone who's manipulating you or bullying you, You want to get really clear on your own truth. You want to really question the things that people are saying to you. Manipulators are going to tell you all kinds of horrible insults and criticisms, and it's best for you to actually tackle those head on and question them so that you don't let them in, so that they can't have that kind of power. And then the third question that's really helpful is, does this even matter? So we don't need to hang on to the value to value painful emotions or feelings that aren't actually going to improve our lives. So just let the ugly and unimportant stuff go. Now, I know this is easier said than done, but one of the best pieces of advice I've heard recently is that if you ask yourself, will this even matter in 6 months? That helps you to put things into perspective, because many things really are transient. They don't really matter. Someone says something to you that's insulting, or someone cuts you off in traffic. I'll guarantee in 6 hours, it probably won't even matter. So always try to get yourself in perspective if you are feeling a wash of emotions or feelings come over you. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please go ahead and like and subscribe and share with any of your friends who you think might benefit from it. As always, I wish you happiness and good health, and I thank you for being with me.